Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. You know the drill, right? We're all about getting to the heart of these important tech concepts without getting lost in the weeds.
Yeah, we want to make sure you can actually use this stuff.
Exactly. And today we're going to be diving into volume testing in software. We've got some really interesting articles here that are going to give us a good overview of what it is and, more importantly, why it even matters.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of people, I think, maybe haven't heard of, but it's super important.
Yeah, it's definitely over the wood stuff, but it's making sure things actually work when it matters.
Right.
So basically, our mission here is to really boil down the essence of volume testing and what it means for you in practice. No jargon, just the good stuff.
So think of this deep dive as your cheat sheet to understanding really a key part of how we make software reliable.
All right, so let's break it down. What exactly is volume testing? Basically, it's like throwing a massive amount of data at a piece of software.
Right. It's sometimes even called flood testing.
Okay, flood testing.
Yeah, it's a pretty visual name.
I like it, makes sense.
And really it's about seeing, can the system handle all of this data, this huge amount of data? Is it going to buckle under pressure?
Right, it's kind of like a stress test, but for data.
Exactly, a stress test for data. I like that.
So how about a real-world example to make this a bit more concrete? Imagine you have a music streaming platform, right? And millions of people are trying to download songs all at the same time.
Right.
Volume testing would basically simulate that huge data flow to see if the servers can keep up.
Yeah, you don't want everything to just grind to a halt, or even worse, crash completely.
Yeah, nobody wants that spinning wheel of death.
Right.
So this all sounds very technical, but where's the payoff? Why should anyone care about volume testing?
Well, the biggest reason is that it can save you a ton of money and headaches down the road.
Yeah, how so?
Think about it. If you find out that your system can't handle a certain amount of data before you even launch, you can fix those problems early on.
Okay, I see. So you're avoiding those expensive last-minute fixes or even outages after you've already launched.
Yeah, nobody wants to deal with those frantic calls in the middle of the night.
Absolutely. And not to mention, it helps you plan for the future, right? If you know how much data your system can comfortably handle, then you know when you need to scale up.
Exactly. It gives you a roadmap for growth.
So let's dive into the specifics a bit more. What are the main goals or objectives of volume testing?
Well, one of the key things is to see how the system behaves as you add more and more data to its storage, right? Like, at what point does it start to slow down?
Okay, so basically you're trying to anticipate any issues that might come up when dealing with massive amounts of data.
Exactly. You're trying to find the breaking point.
Okay, the breaking point.
Where does performance really start to suffer? You also want to know what the system's capacity is, right?
Right, like how much data can it handle before it starts to have problems?
Exactly. Both under normal conditions and under those extreme, peak loads.
Okay, so we're pushing it to its limits.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about what specifically they're checking for during these tests. It seems like it's a pretty thorough examination.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely comprehensive.
So first off, data loss, right? Are we losing any information along the way?
Right. And then how long does it take for the system to respond to requests? That's the response time.
Okay, and what about the accuracy of the data storage itself? Is the data being stored and retrieved correctly?
Absolutely. That's critical. And then you want to make sure that no data is accidentally getting overwritten without any warning or notification.
Right, because that could be a disaster.
Yeah. You also look for the right error messages and alerts. Like, are there appropriate warnings if there are any volume-related issues?
Makes sense.
Then there's the impact of all this data on processing speed, of course.
Okay, yeah, is it slowing down the system overall?
Right. And are there enough memory resources available?
Resources, like is it running out of memory?
Exactly. And then, we want to make sure that we're testing the entire system, not just parts of it.
Oh, so it's an end-to-end check.
Exactly. End to end.
All right, and are there any other things that they're looking at specifically?
Well, the sources mention checking the risks if the data goes beyond what we expect.
Okay, so what happens if it gets even bigger than we thought?
Right. And then, are there safeguards in place to handle those unexpectedly large volumes of data?
Interesting. So it sounds like they're really putting the system through the ringer.
Yeah, it's definitely a rigorous process.
So I think it's easy to get volume testing mixed up with load testing. Are they the same thing?
No, not quart. They're related, but there's a key difference.
Okay, what is it?
Volume testing, like we've been talking about, is all about the sheer amount of data in the database.
Right, so the volume of the data itself.
Exactly. Whereas load testing is focused on the number of users or the overall load on the application.
Okay, I see. So volume is about the data itself, and load is more about the users accessing it.
Precisely. So volume testing checks how the system responds to just this huge quantity of data,
Okay,
which, could involve like bigger file sizes and stuff like that.
right.
And load testing, it looks at the performance as the user activity increases, maybe more people accessing files or doing things at the same time.
Got it.
So it's two sides of the same coin, really.
Makes sense.
But they're looking at slightly different things.
So, are there any challenges that come up with volume testing? It sounds like it could get pretty complicated.
Oh, yeah, there are definitely some hurdles.
Like what?
Well, one of the things they mentioned is that it can be hard to realistically simulate something called memory fragmentation.
Oh yeah, I remember you mentioned that earlier. What is memory fragmentation again?
Yeah, so it's when the data gets kind of scattered in the memory, and that can really slow down access.
Ah, okay. So it's like trying to find a specific book in a messy library.
Exactly. It's a mess. And then, you have to generate these unique keys for huge amounts of test data, which can get pretty complex.
Okay, yeah, I can imagine.
And then there's the challenge of maintaining the relational integrity of all that generated data.
Relational integrity, what's that?
Yeah, it's making sure that all the connections and dependencies between the data points remain accurate, even under this, huge amount of data.
Ah, so basically making sure that everything still makes sense and works together even when there's a ton of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So to sum it all up, it seems like volume testing is a pretty crucial part of software engineering.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's really about making sure that a system can withstand the pressures of handling tons of data.
Right. It's about making sure it's robust and it's going to be reliable when things scale up.
And it's considered non-functional testing, right? Meaning it focuses on performance rather than specific features.
Exactly.
It's interesting to think about how much data we interact with every day, like just in our own lives, on our phones, computers, everything. Makes you wonder, how these principles of volume testing could apply to our own personal data management.
Right. Like, how do we make sure our own digital lives are resilient and can handle all the data we throw at them?
Exactly. It's food for thought. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into volume testing. We hope you found it helpful.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Until next time.